despite all the harm that industry inflicts on our bodies, they're still our bodies. So stick around to learn some of the ways that I take my sovereignty back over my own health. Healing is a slow process, especially when we have to rely on other people to undo the damage, for example, from prior procedures or surgeries, a process I'm right in the middle of. So I speak from experience when I say that sometimes we just need things to get us through and to protect us until we get the help that we really need. In this video, I'll share what has helped my fiance and I through those difficult times when we knew what we needed, but we had to wait for it. This is the Jade Tooth Project, and this channel represents that in-between period. Right now, we know that we need non-toxic dental restorations, but we have to be patient to receive the support to create them. So in the meantime, we have to adapt and do what we can with what we have. So the hormonal system, the endocrine system, seems to be the most affected by systemic toxicity, which is exactly what the dental industry gives us. The organs that comprise the endocrine system are the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, the thyroid, the parathyroid, the adrenals, the pancreas, the thymus, the gonads, and the secondary organs, which also have endocrine function, are the kidneys, the heart, the gastrointestinal tract, fat cells, the adipose tissue, placenta, skin, bone, and the liver. Now, I can't cover how to protect all of these organs in this video, but I'll share my decoction formulas, which helped my partner and I through tough times of hormonal disruption. I'll start by saying this is not medical advice, should not be taken as that. I'm not a licensed medical professional. I'm not liable should you choose to act on any of this information. And this is for educational purposes only. So, what is a decoction? A decoction is a Chinese method, originally from traditional Chinese medicine, of simmering herbs in water for longer periods of time than a tea. And this really helps to extract a lot of the medicinal compounds in it. And what's also kind of unique about decoctions are the best way to create one is to soak the herbs beforehand, to rinse them with water first and then soak them for about half an hour or 45 minutes so that they can get hydrated. You know, dense herbs like roots and bark and mushrooms and seeds, that sort of thing. It really helps to extract more medicinal compounds by soaking them beforehand. And I even soak things like powders and flowers and leaves. So I also want to mention that I don't believe in fighting fire with fire. These problems were created by industry and by pharmaceutical and allopathic thinking within that paradigm. So the problem can't be solved at the same level of thinking. That's why I use herbs. That's why I've switched away from every industrial product possible in my life. I don't consume any pharmaceuticals. And I'm actively trying to find solutions to create dental restorations which are non-toxic. That's the whole purpose of this channel. So I'll share more about that at the end of the video, but let's get into it. My decoctions, And I should also say one more thing first. For harm reduction purposes, I have to say, if you do act on this information against my recommendation not to, then please do your research first about every single herb. These are powerful things. They can interact with drugs and pharmaceuticals. And I don't know what your particular constitution is, what your biological makeup is, what your drug intake is like. So please just know the actions of each one of these herbs before using them. I'm going to give you long lists of herbs that I use because I've looked into these herbs and I've found that they're good for myself. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily good for you. If, in one of these decoctions I didn't have all of the ingredients that I needed or that I listed, then I would just omit it. It's totally fine not to make these full formulas. And I keep changing it up, modifying them to better suit my needs and based on how certain herbs interact with my system, what I learn about them, and how they make me feel. So all of these herbs that I talk about, I'm talking about the dried, whole, or chopped herbs, unless I specifically mention that it's a powder. And I also only use and source organic herbs, and I only use filtered water for these decoctions. Since they get boiled down, toxins can get concentrated. That's why maintaining the purity of the herbs and the water, and even using a good pot, like a ceramic pot, for example, is much better than anything like a metal pot, and particularly not a pot with a non-stick coating or Teflon coating that is super carcinogenic, and I would avoid that at all costs. Stainless steel, if that's all you have, it's okay, but a lot of these herbs do chelate metals. Again, I'm saying this for harm reduction purposes. But yeah, here's my formulas. This first one is a hypothalamus and pituitary support, or heavy metal detox decoction. Now, this is a strong one, so I take activated charcoal an hour before drinking a cup of this, because I think the activated charcoal, specifically from organic bamboo, is really good to flush and help bind and carry out of the body all the toxins which are pulled from the various organs by this decoction. So I use this decoction to support my hormonal health, my brain, and my overall endocrine function. I start this one with 4 liters of water, which is 17 cups, and I boil it down halfway to 4 liters, or 8.5 cups. I rinse and then soak all of my herbs in a few different bowls, because there are groups of herbs that need to go in at different times. The seeds, roots, barks, and mushrooms primarily fall into the first group, that in this decoction I simmer for 60 to 90 minutes. And later I'll get into the other groups, but just know up front that that's how I do it, I keep them soaking in separate bowls so I can just add them as a batch as it's cooking. So here are the herbs that I put in first at a low simmer, not a high boil. 10 grams or 2 tablespoons of milk thistle seed, 36 grams or 6 tablespoons of astragalus root, 2.5 grams or 1.5 teaspoons of rhodiola rosea root, 3 grams or 2 tablespoons of American ginseng root, 10 grams or 2 tablespoons of chuchuaski bark. If you've never heard of this one, it's spelled Chuchuhuasi, chuchuasi. 24 grams or 4 tablespoons of burdock root, 10 grams or 2 tablespoons of turkey tail mushroom. That's the fruiting body, not the mycelium. 10 grams or 2 tablespoons of nettle root, 6 grams or 1 tablespoon of ashwagandha root. So that's the first group. I let that go for an hour to an hour and a half. But in the last 10 or 15 minutes, I'll add in the second group of herbs which have been soaking, which is 2 grams of wild lettuce or 2 teaspoons, 2 grams or 2 teaspoons of ginkgo leaf, 6 grams or 2 tablespoons of cleavers, the aerial portion of the plant. And so that's the second group. And then I turn the heat off after that's gone for 10 or 15 minutes, and I then add 2 grams or 2 teaspoons of gotu kola, the aerial portion, 2 grams or 2 teaspoons of jasmine flower, and optionally sometimes I will add 4 grams or 3 teaspoons of cannabis flower. And I let those steep for about 10 to 15 minutes, or I just leave them in there until it cools. And then I strain the whole thing into glass, a big glass jug. I put it in the refrigerator, and I drink 1 cup in the morning and 1 cup in the evening. Again, about an hour after a cup of activated charcoal in water or milk. And I like to stir my activated charcoal with a wooden utensil, by the way, because, like I said, it can bind metals, and using things like stainless steel silverware could introduce more metals into the charcoal, which is not ideal, even though it does bind. And generally I'll drink this an hour before or after a meal, and I drink it warmed. So I'll take it out of the fridge, I'll put a cup into a glass, like one cup, which is, I don't know how much in liters, maybe probably about 1/4 of a liter. And I'll warm it up on the stove. I don't warm it up in the microwave because I think the microwave can destroy some of the medicinal compounds. Now, that's the first decoction, and I've got 4 more for you. I'll just give you a brief summary of the next 4 decoctions that I'm going to share before I share them. The first one is a decoction for liver detox. The second one is a decoction for protecting the kidneys, the adrenals, the bladder, and the liver. The next one is a decoction for PMS, or a woman's luteal phase. And the last one is a diabetes support decoction. So now I'll share the decoction for liver detox. And again, I drink a cup of activated charcoal beforehand with this one. I start with 3 liters of water for this decoction, or 13 cups of filtered water, and I'll boil down halfway again. So same procedure, I rinse all the herbs beforehand, I soak them in separate bowls in these different groups. For the first group, this one I simmer for just 60 to 75 minutes. 30 grams or 5 tablespoons of burdock root, 15 grams or 2.5 tablespoons of yellow dock root, 12 grams or 2.5 tablespoons of lightly crushed milk thistle seeds. So that's the first group. And then during the last 10 to 15 minutes of simmering, I add 3 grams or 1 tablespoon of ginkgo leaf, 2 grams or 2 teaspoons of wild lettuce aerial portions, 1 gram or 1.5 teaspoons of wormwood, 2 grams or 1 teaspoon of Chinese walnut, the green whole. And after the heat is off, I steep in about 30 grams or 1 cup of fresh cilantro. And then I let this cool, I strain it into glass, and I refrigerate once again. This one, I just take 1 cup after dinner, so before bed sometime is the best. And I like to drink this in the springtime, and the reason I drink it after dinner and in the springtime is because in Chinese medicine, the time of day that's associated with the liver is, I believe, sometime around 1 to 3 a.m. It's in the middle of the night. So to do a liver detox when the liver is most active and already dumping toxins can support that process. And the springtime is associated with the wood element, and so is the liver. The liver is connected with springtime. And again, I will warm this up on the stove before drinking it. So that's my liver detox decoction. And the next decoction is for protecting the kidneys, adrenals, bladder, and liver. I start with 3 liters or 13 cups of water, filtered, for this one, and again I boil it down halfway. Same thing, I rinse and soak the herbs in separate bowls, and then I simmer the following herbs for 60 to 75 minutes. 15 grams or 3 tablespoons of red belt conch mushroom, 30 grams or 5 tablespoons of astragalus root. Some people pronounce it astragalus. I don't know. Same thing. 10 grams or 1.5 tablespoons of ashwagandha root, 3 grams or 2 teaspoons of rhodiola rosea root, 12 grams or 2.5 tablespoons of lightly crushed milk thistle seeds, 6 grams or 2 teaspoons of turmeric root, and 10 grams or 2 tablespoons of schisandra berries. And then in the last 10 to 15 minutes of simmering, I add 3 grams or 1 tablespoon of ginkgo leaf, 2 grams or 2 teaspoons of wild lettuce, the aerial portions, 5 grams or 2 tablespoons of horsetail, 5 grams or 2 tablespoons of nettle leaf, 3 grams or 2 tablespoons of rose petals, 4 grams or 2 tablespoons of Plectranthus barbatus leaf. This is called blue spur flower, as I know it. and 2 grams or 1 teaspoon of vitex berries. And then after I turn the heat off, I add 5 grams or a quarter cup of dulse flakes. Dulse is a seaweed really high in iodine. And then after it's cooled, I add 2 grams or 1 teaspoon of matcha powder, 5 grams or 2 teaspoons of barley grass juice powder, and 5 grams or 2 teaspoons of gum arabic powder. Then I strain it into glass, I put it in the fridge, and this one I drink a cup and a half in the morning, an hour before or after breakfast, warmed up. I drink it in the morning because it could be very stimulating with the matcha and some of the other adaptogens in here. Now the next decoction is a decoction for hormonal balance for women for their luteal phase. I made this for my partner when she was experiencing symptoms that correlated with what doctors will call premenstrual syndrome, or PMS. And I start this one with 4 liters or 17 cups of filtered water, and I boil it down halfway. Same thing, rinse and soak the herbs in separate bowls for about half an hour. I simmer for 60 to 75 minutes the following herbs: 23 grams or 4 tablespoons of ashwagandha root, 23 grams or 4 tablespoons of astragalus root, 15 grams or 2.5 tablespoons of dong quai root, 16 grams or 2.5 tablespoons of schisandra berries, 8 grams or 1.5 tablespoons of Ceylon cinnamon bark. Very important that it's Ceylon cinnamon and not the cassia cinnamon, because cassia cinnamon contains a neurotoxin. 5 grams or 1 tablespoon of crushed vitex berries. And so that's the first group. The second group, I add the last 10 to 15 minutes. 15 grams or 1 cup of corn silk, 4 grams or 4 tablespoons of cleavers, the aerial portions, 15 grams or 1 cup of nettle leaf, 11 grams or about 3/4 cup of red clover blossoms, 15 grams or 1 cup of tulsi leaf and flower, that's holy basil, and then I let it cool. This one doesn't have any herbs that I add in afterwards. I strain into glass, I put it in the fridge, and for my partner I warm up 1 cup that I give to her before breakfast. I do this one in the morning because generally her symptoms were worse in the morning. Now the next one is a diabetes support decoction to assist with blood sugar regulation. I start with 4 liters or 17 cups of filtered water, and I boil it down halfway. I rinse and soak again for 30 minutes in separate bowls. I simmer the following herbs for 75 to 90 minutes. 15 grams or 3 tablespoons of chaga mushroom, 15 grams or 3 tablespoons of red belt conch mushroom, 25 grams or 4 tablespoons of astragalus root, 8 grams or 1.5 tablespoons of ashwagandha root, 10 grams or 2 tablespoons of schisandra berries, 6 grams or 1 tablespoon of Ceylon cinnamon bark, 5 grams or 2 teaspoons of turmeric root, 5 grams or 2 teaspoons of ginger root, 5 grams or 2 teaspoons of maca root, 5 grams or around 1 tablespoon of dong quai root, 6 grams or 1 tablespoon of echinacea angustifolia or purpurea root. Angustifolia is preferred, but if you can't find that, if I can't find that, then I use purpurea. And then the last 10 to 15 minutes, I add in 3 grams or 1.5 tablespoons of Plectranthus barbatus leaf. Again, that's called blue spur flower, but I use the leaf. 2 grams or 2 teaspoons of ginkgo leaf. 2 grams or 1.5 teaspoons of rhodiola rosea root. 6 grams or half a cup of red clover blossoms. 5 grams or 2 tablespoons of moringa leaf. 2 grams or 1 tablespoon of neem leaf. 3 grams or 2 teaspoons of valerian root. And because it has valerian, I am careful not to drink this before driving a car, for example, because it can make me sleepy. And after the heat is off, I add 5 grams or a quarter cup of dulse flakes. And after cooling, I add 10 grams or 4 teaspoons of gum arabic powder, 3 grams or 1 teaspoon of cracked cell wall pine pollen, and then I strain into glass, I refrigerate, and I warm up 1 cup that I take between breakfast and lunch. Now, those are my decoctions. Those are just some of my decoctions that I've made for various ailments. And now I'd like to share some of the other things that are not herbal remedies necessarily that help me to cope in other holistic ways. First is mud baths and waterfalls. I love covering myself in mud or clay. It really pulls things out of me. I feel it just cleansing my whole system. I think skin was one of those secondary endocrine organs that I mentioned. The skin does produce hormones, and it helps us to detoxify through sweating and other means. So covering myself in mud is just always instantly makes me feel better. And bathing in waterfalls, it's like one of my favorite things. I feel so cleansed after doing those things. Staying hydrated is big for me too, with purified water. When I'm in a place where I don't have a good water filter, I'll go to the grocery store, and they have reverse osmosis water there that I'll buy by the jug. I'll put it in glass, and I'll add a pinch of salt or some flowers or some mineral drops or something to remineralize and structure the water. Now, the following things I take caution with. I wanted to include these because I have seen them as coping mechanisms in the past and ways to improve my health, but what I've realized is that sometimes they can help, but sometimes they really make the problem worse because they can detox me too intensely. And, it's all about balance with this stuff. So, cannabis, particularly smoking, but also eating cannabis. I threw it in the decoction because, I just get some of the terpenes from throwing it in a water extract, but it's different when it's a full spectrum extract in oil. It's way stronger. Other psychedelics, it's just really sometimes unknown, the ways in which they're redistributing different metals in my body. I have tattoos, and for a long time I had composite dental fillings, and I just think that sometimes psychedelics can move things around really strongly, and also can have just risks mentally and spiritually that are not always well known or talked about. Intense spiritual practices, other intense spiritual practices like Kundalini or other types of yoga, intense exercise, or other breath work or fasting or anything like this. Yeah, I don't do much of this stuff anymore. I'm very, very cautious if I do. But what does help me, back to the things that really help me cope, eating organic, just making sure I'm eating pure food, makes me feel better, makes me think more clearly, and I just feel better about what I'm eating. It is unfortunately more expensive, but at this point I just shop from, direct from farmers. I go to the farmers market and that's where I get all of my food. So it's actually not that much more expensive by buying direct from the farmers, and it just has innumerable benefits for my health to not be eating pesticides all the time. It's really changed my life. Having routine and groundedness in my life, just having stability and trying not to move around more than I have to, that helps me mentally especially, but also physically. It's a lot of work to move around and to always be changing it up. Reminding myself that help is on the way and working hard to find that help, that just helps me mentally. Like, I don't get hopeless when I feel like I'm making progress. So, if I'm just sitting around, then of course, like, no help is gonna come to me. I have to actively seek it out and not think that it's just gonna fall into my lap. But that's not to say that, like, there isn't divine assistance. Like, I do think that I don't have to hurt myself to heal. I really believe that, but I also know that I can't be just complacent and lazy either. It's a balance. Patience, self-love, and prayer. These things really help just to give me peace of mind. Time alone, just focusing on myself too, is really important, because I realize when I'm constantly absorbed in other people's lives and their requests and their demands and their opinions, that it just distracts me from my own healing, and that's not something I can really afford for my well-being. Taking activated charcoal daily, like I said, with milk or water, that helps me to cope a lot with this systemic toxicity that I've faced, because I know that my body is constantly detoxing from my healthy lifestyle, from the herbs that I take, from the foods that I eat, just from existing and being a human with an immune system and an endocrine system and a lymphatic system. Like, there's constant detoxing happening. I know my body is always trying to heal. It's a healing machine, like everyone's is. That's the whole point of biological function. It's to self-repair and to purify itself and become more efficient in its evolution. So anyways, I take activated charcoal as much as I can. It's kind of a hard habit to get into, but overall I notice really great improvement in my symptoms of metal toxicity and other endocrine disruption. Just my mental health is better when I'm taking charcoal regularly. Accepting where I'm at. This kind of goes along with patience and self-love, and just knowing that I can't be moving faster than I'm moving, can't be doing more than I'm doing, and that helps me just to just be at peace and not feel like bogged down by or feel victimized by how I'm feeling. And one thing that kind of goes along with that is taking responsibility for my own healing. I want to differentiate that this doesn't mean I take responsibility for how I've been hurt. But I do know that no one is going to step into my life and give me all the answers and do everything for me so that I can recover from the ways that I have been hurt. At the end of the day, I am my own best friend, I am my own support system, and I'm my biggest advocate. So I have to know that it's up to me if I want to get better. I have to take those actions. And also just noticing what things make me feel better and what makes me feel worse. That helps me to sort out the things that can't be logically understood. Like, I can do all this research on these herbs and make a decoction for myself that I think is going to help me, but then I drink it and for some reason I'm feeling worse. And I just have to accept that if that's the case and say, okay, well, there's something in here that's not agreeing with me, and I just need to lay off of that and try something else, move on. But also if I do something, like for example bathing in clay, and I'm like, wow, I feel amazing. I don't know why, but but it's so good. Then I'm gonna try to do that more. I'm gonna try to incorporate that more into my daily routine. I don't have to know why it works to know that it works, to know that it makes me feel good. So I just listen to my own bodily responses to things and let that guide me. So those are some of the ways that I cope with systemic toxicity and all the harm that's been done to me by various doctors and that sort of thing. And just to wrap it up, I want to share a little bit about this channel and what my goals are here, what I'm doing here. This is, like I said, the Jade Tooth Project. I named it that because I'm trying to create replacement teeth out of jade, essentially, or at least fillings and inlays. But my first goal is to make a flipper. This comes from a need that my fiance has for a flipper to keep her teeth from moving out of place, and she's had a dental extraction, a few of them actually. We both need some permanent fillings too, though, maybe inlays. And after thousands of hours of research and mulling over possible ways that we could potentially help ourselves, and looking into the dental industry and everything that they have to offer, there's just really no good solutions. There's no non-toxic options provided by the dental industry. Unfortunately, it's a really sticky situation that all of humanity is collectively in together right now. And I think the most elegant, non-invasive, and non-toxic solution is a bioplastic flipper in her case, and probably for a lot of people too, because after tooth extraction, then a lot of people will go towards implants, and these are just invasive and toxic, and it's interesting. I do think there are a couple interesting, like, very, very practical and functional ways to create a non-toxic implant. Actually, the profile picture for this channel is my concept for a Jade one-piece dental implant. And this sort of thing was done by the Mayans with seashells. They would carve seashells into the shape of a tooth, basically a wedge, and tap it into the jawbone of people who had had teeth extracted. And it worked. The jawbone accepted it as a new tooth and started growing new bone around it. There's archaeological evidence to prove this, and even animal studies. But nonetheless, I'd like to try for the less invasive option first of creating a flipper. But this is a harder undertaking than just crafting a one-piece Jade implant. It's going to require advanced biomaterial research and innovation using different bioplastics, and also using nephrite, jade, and potentially herbal extracts and different mineral reinforcements and that sort of thing. But I'm doing this because no one has figured it out yet, and no one has created a product from it yet that anyone has access to. So it's coming from a personal need, but I would also love for every human to have access to this if it works. So the team I'm really looking for involves different material scientists, different dentists, or people in university labs doing biomaterial research, bioplastic innovation, that sort of thing. Any dentists with access to intraoral scanners, or certain milling machines like CNC 5-axle dental mills, or even gem cutters who have access to a CNC engraver could really help for the nephrite portion. And engineers, just generally engineers, looking to connect with people who know a lot about creating new materials like this and designing them custom fit for people, and also looking for people with experience in the patent industry, patent clerks or lawyers, so that this, if it does turn out good, can have a defensive publication created for it. I don't want to patent it. I want to make sure that no one ever patents it, so that everyone has access to it. Because this is really something humanity needs. Humans haven't seemed to figure out in all of our long history an elegant solution like this that doesn't require a procedure like sticking some object into the jawbone. Now, I'd also like to innovate fillings using a mineral-based dental cement, which is completely non-toxic, also something that's never been done, and inlays, which would combine nephrite and this dental cement, most likely. Those are my first goals. And if you're passionate about this, if you are intrigued by this, please connect with me. Please comment down below or reach out through my email connected to this YouTube channel. If you'd like to support this channel and boost it on YouTube, then please share this video with your friends or your family or anyone you think might benefit from this information. Please subscribe to this channel and go check out my other videos to get some more context. And stay tuned for more. Thank you for your time.